I thought Poldark was a one-time miniseries event. Now I find out that it has a sad ending and I have to wait for a season 2. Calling my therapist now. This series ended with a bang and so much sadness in one 2-hour episode. For someone who thought the whole thing would end happily with a neat little bow, I was sad, so let's just dig right in. Demelza's lies to Ross finally catch up with her when the whole family finds out that Verity has eloped with the sea captain. Frances is so upset with Ross for helping Verity get away with this elopement, but of course Ross has no idea. Not only is Verity now with the questionable captain, but Ross no longer trusts Demelza and she sets out to earn his trust back. Speaking of trust, Dr. Ennis and Karen have finally succumbed to their unmistakable chemistry and had an affair. But her husband finds out and accidentally squeezes her to death. Not metaphorically, literally squeezes her to death. Dr. Ennis is beyond upset and dealing with his grief over his wrongdoing, and now the poor woman is dead. Understandably, the husband is now wanted and is probably going to be swinging from a rope if he doesn't escape. The death of Jim Crane is heavy on Ross's mind, so he decides to save him by evading the government. His sense of right now seems more governed by his own spirit and less by the dictates of society. We now see Ross grappling even more with his own conscience and how he works with those who he has responsibility for. The Warleggans decide to make things right with Frances. After all, Ross did expose their card shark as a cheat, and so they decide to forgive his debt and give him some pounds. I doubt this is good in the long term, but I guess Ross did help his cousin out. Demelza is still trying to put right the family relationships because of what she did, and ends up caring for Elizabeth, Frances, and their baby while they have the putrid throat, putting herself at risk to care for them and their child. She explains to Ross why she had to do it, and he kind of understands, but there's also a price to pay. This kindness ends up costing her. Not only does she get incredibly ill, but their little girl Julia catches the fever, and Dr. Ennis cannot save her. Demelza saved Elizabeth and Frances's child, and now her own child is gone. It's just cruel. And then it's just really sad for most of the rest of the episode, because once they kill off a baby, it's just, you don't really come back from that quickly. The worst part is Demelza doesn't even know about Julia for a long time because she remains unresponsive in her fever. Elizabeth eventually comes and sits by her bedside, and Ross tells her just to pray that the woman he loves doesn't die. And Elizabeth seems hurt by this. The only real break in this episode comes toward the end, when Ross is able to benefit from the shipwreck of the Warleggans' new boat. And he gets all the contents that wash ashore and shares them with all of his people. But that's it. It doesn't end well. His mind's in trouble, their baby is dead, relationships are still harmed. It's just a downer. It ends with everyone wanting a bunch of Kleenex and sobbing their eyes out. Now I'm just hoping that season 2 comes along quickly so we can all get elevated out of this funk and Ross and Demelza can have the happily ever after we all want them to have.